All those Chase Elliott fans that don't like Alan Gustafson, well, I have bad news for you. You just bought yourselves 2 more years at least of him after him literally gifting his driver the win today in Martinsville. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are doing a little discussion on Martinsville today, and very interesting race it was. And I'll tell you what, this was a pretty boring day of motorsports, from Formula One and Suzuka, IndyCar and Barber, to NASCAR and Martinsville. I think NASCAR was the best, but that's not saying much because I felt like that was probably the most boring race so far this season. That was like one of the races where I actually was like, yeah, this is pretty boring at times. But Chase Elliott, man, you guys know I'm not big on Chase Elliott, not really a fan of him, but as usual, even if I'm not a fan of a driver, I have the utmost respect for them. And what a drive in that final run by the 9 to hold off Denny Hamlin there in those closing laps. But there's also a bit of frustration that comes along with that I'll talk about in a few minutes with the car itself. But the race overall, Martinsville, there was a little bit of beating and banging on some restarts here and there, but I expected a lot more with the extra horsepower mixed with some more tire fall off, but it just didn't translate to what I expected. Maybe that's my fault for expecting more, but I always am fully guilty of comparing the next gen product at any track, but Martinsville especially is a good one to like previous generations that I've witnessed, like Gen 6 and the car of tomorrow, the tail end of that. And man, those races at Martinsville, in those eras were just so much better than what we have now. And I'm not saying it was a bad race, it was really just boring. I mean, Denny Hamlin, of course, big fan of Denny Hamlin. I enjoyed seeing him lead a lot of laps, and it was good to see him run up front pretty well all day long. I mean, his worst running position outside of a pit stop cycle was second. So he put together a really, really great effort. He, even without winning the race, still scored the most points on the day. So yeah, Chase Elliott won, but Hamlin still had the best day of anybody in terms of the points, and of course everything is about points now. But it was interesting. Hamlin would kind of just drive away from everybody. No one really had anything for him. And Chase Elliott, who ends up winning the race, had an 8th to 12th place car pretty well all day long, and that's where some of my frustration comes, because an 8th to 12th place car ends up getting to the lead, and well, he doesn't fall back. No one can even pass him. And is that because the 9 car was that good and he couldn't get through traffic, or was it the opposite, where his car was just barely good enough and no one could pass him, and it was just more of a dirty air thing? Either way, that's a problem still. If his car was that fast but he could not go through traffic, tells you that there's still work to be done on the next gen car at these short tracks. I mean, there was at points throughout the race where it just wasn't really much going on. It was just kind of follow the leader, in a sense of, there was still side-by-side racing, of course, through lap traffic. You're going to get that, and there was tire fall off. I mean, we saw, of course, Alan Gustafson make that call to bring in Chase Elliott really, really early in that final stage, and therefore once everything was said and done in the pit stop sequence, he was leading by 7 seconds on Denny Hamlin, who eventually ran him down and passed him. And then Chase Elliott gets gifted the caution of a lifetime, because why in the world are we throwing a caution for debris on pit road, bro? I was quite surprised by that. That kind of screamed old days NASCAR, where they were just looking for anything to get a caution and get a restart. And then, of course, Ross Chastain, being the hero he is, stayed out and obviously didn't quite work out the way he would have preferred. He still dropped like a rock by the end of the race. But yeah, I mean, Chase Elliott, brilliant drive on that final run, gets the lead. Like I said, very lucky caution, all thanks to Alan Gustafson. Alan Gustafson won that race, and he made a great call, makes up for a lot of the bad calls he's made for that 9 team in the last 2, 3, 4 years, it feels like, at least. And as a Jeff Gordon fan, I know all about Alan Gustafson and bad pit calls. But he drove great race. It did exactly what he needed to do and absolutely deserves the credit for what he did on that final run to hold off Denny Hamlin. And Hamlin just didn't really have anything for him in those closing laps. He could kind of get to like 3 to 4 tenths of a second, and then he just kind of flatlined. He'd drop back a little bit, get back to that same kind of gap, and then he seemed to get stuck again, which that was pretty frustrating to watch because we knew how strong that 11 was, and then as soon as he hit a certain gap, it's just like he hit a wall. I got a few diecasts today, by the way. I'm going to show you guys, and there's some story behind that in a few minutes. But Denny Hamlin even had a little bit of controversy there and ran Ryan Blaney into the wall at the tail end of that race there on, the last restart. And honestly, yeah, Hamlin drove him up and put him in the wall 100%. But you look at the way they made contact, they made contact well before Blaney hit the wall, and the angles and the way the contact is, Hamlin's car in that scenario is always going to be really difficult at that point to turn. So I was not surprised. As soon as they made that contact, they just kind of both chased it up into the wall. And honestly, that to me was really just hard short track racing. I really don't think we need to look into that very deep, but certainly if I'm Ryan Blaney, I'm pretty upset about it. And on top of that, you had a little bit of beef between Bubba Wallace and Carson Hocevar on a restart there later in the race. That was really baffling because Carson, I guess, shipped it 3 wide on Bubba on the restart, and then, they come around in turn 3, and Bubba just runs him over, which, first of all, thank you, Bubba. Anytime the 77 gets turned around, I am happy. However, you look like a fool on that one because you wrecked yourself out of the race and you wrecked 3 other cars in the process. So W for cleaning out the 77, L for wrecking yourself and taking 3 other guys with you. Did not like to see that part, but I at least enjoyed the first bit of it. I don't care where Bubba ends up because he's not my favorite driver, so if he wrecks himself out taking out the 77, I'm okay with that. But overall, yeah, man, those were kind of the 2 beefs we had throughout the race, the 2 bits of drama, and outside of that, it was pretty just relaxed, chill day of Martinsville. And yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, what can you do? That's just the way it goes sometimes. And I just want to lean back on the car topic for a second there with Chase Elliott. He was an 8th to 12th place car all day, and as soon as he got to the lead, he had no problem holding on and winning the race. And that's just where I'm frustrated because in any era that I've watched before, the tail end of Car of Tomorrow, Gen 6, if you had a car capable of running at the front, if you had a really, really good car, no matter what, as long as there was time, you were going to be able to drive through the field methodically and get back to the front, where that's just, as we are seeing, not really possible still. Even with all the work Goodyear has done and NASCAR increasing the horsepower, clearly it's still not quite enough, and there's still some work to be done there. Now let's take a look at the points, because points are so important now, and Tyler Reddick still up at the top of the board over Ryan Blaney, who's 82 points back. Denny Hamlin, like I mentioned, scored the most points on the day, and he finds himself now P3, up 1 spot, 94 back, over Chase Elliott, who moves up into 4th with that win. Byron rounding out the top 5, and Ty Gibbs, another really strong day, gains 5 spots and is into the now 6th position. Now, man, I'll tell you what, I go on Twitter and I see some people actually being dang, Ty Gibbs haters are gonna have to take back everything they said about him now. That is not true. As someone that does not like Ty Gibbs, he could go win 10 championships in the Cup Series. I'm still not gonna like the guy, and I'm still gonna trash talk him. I don't care what his success is. I'm still gonna trash talk and hate on the guy. Don't worry. But nonetheless, Kyle Larson gains a spot. He had a very interesting day. He moves up into the 9th spot, but he was terrible in stage 1, and they made some really good adjustments on that car. Got it into a top 10 position by the end of the race. So that's a championship type performance right there, when you don't have a great car but you turn it around and turn it into a top 10. And how about as well Shane Van Gisbergen, 2 weeks in a row best oval finisher on Trackhouse, finishes P11 today after running top 10 for 300 laps. Unfortunately, didn't quite work out for him right at the end, but still P11, a really, really good result for SVG. For a guy that some people like to claim is not improving on ovals, boy, do you look stupid right now, because he has been showing up this season. Las Vegas is really the only oval where things haven't gone his way, and he qualified good, and we didn't even get to see what he had because he had splitter damage on the first lap after he wrecked himself there. But back on the points, Bubba Wallace, big loss, loses 8 positions down to P11. SVG moves up to 14th in the points, but Carson Hocevar and Daniel Suarez, both the last two, actually Spire is 15th through 17th right now, and even Chastain gains a spot in the points, but I mean, Suarez is currently in by 9 points over his teammate of Michael McDowell, and then has a nearly 20-point buffer on Cindric, and of course more on other guys behind. Chase Briscoe, I expect to be moving forward as these weeks go on. He had a pretty rough day, but turned it into a relatively okay result in the mid-teens there by the end, so it wasn't like too terrible, but still not good enough from that 19 team. And Kyle Busch as well, man. Oh my god, he's right now 24th in the standings, and it was a pretty embarrassing day for that 8 team. RCR as a whole is just like complete disaster mode right now, so who knows what's going to go on there with Kyle Busch and the future of him at that team. But it's really fun getting to like look up here and follow along with the points week after week right now. It's a lot of fun doing that, because this is not something I did for the past decade since the playoff format became a thing. I wouldn't really pay attention to the playoff standings until about 5 races left, when I would start to pay attention to the bubble situation or the regular season championship battle. But now I'm looking at the points every single week, so thank you NASCAR for bringing back this format. So I got some new diecast today, by the way, to cap off this day. And as you guys know, big Jeff Gordon fan, you can maybe see some of Jeff Gordon stuff, a lot of 164. And right over there is one of his cars, and another one there, the DuPont car of tomorrow. But I got the 164 Nicorette car. Absolute beauty. Look at this thing. Yeah, I always wanted this diecast, so I'm glad that I finally got this. And the number one I've been looking for, Jeff Gordon's 2008 Pepsi car. Now there's a story behind this one. When I was like 7 or 8 years old, my dad actually, we were at Canadian Tire, and he bought me a Jeff Gordon keychain. And then we went to Walmart, and I saw this car, this diecast, and I was begging him. I was like, please get me this Jeff Gordon car. And he refused, because he had bought me already like a Jeff Gordon keychain. And as my little 8-year-old self would do, I cried about it, and I was really sad. And it haunted me until this very day. And my dad, I found this car on the internet a few weeks ago. My dad said, I'll get it for you. So after all these years, nearly 20 years later, after all that waiting, I finally have it, and it can go back there in the display of all my favorite drivers, and of course the Nicorette car too. 2008 Nicorette car is, kind of like a bad car, because that's like the car credited for like all of Jeff Gordon's back problems after his crash in Las Vegas. But nonetheless, I just wanted to like show you guys those there, and kind of the highlight of my day. But overall, looking forward to Bristol in a few weeks time. We do have an off week, unfortunately, which sucks, waiting an extra week for NASCAR, but I am excited to get back in Bristol. Let me know what you guys thought of the race, of course, and that will do it for me. Thank you for watching, and have yourselves a great day.